Hey, Michael. Can you hear me? Or is it me?
No, I was muted. It joined me. How are you?
Oh, it's one of those weeks.
Yeah.
One of those weeks that starts with a Monday.
I had to do my rounds today or start doing my rounds. I've never been a hugely social person. I've always relied very heavily on luck and opportunity, and it served me very well for for more than a decade, but in business for going on a decade now. And that still may be true, but at the same time, I feel like if I listened to the advice my dad, who's not a very social person, tried to tell me years and years and years ago, be more social. It really does help. You'll get more opportunity for being social. If I listened to him, I I would be even bigger now than I would be big.
But
Um,
you have to increase your surface area for luck.
yeah, you do. You really have to. There's so many layers to it too. You just notice in the general channel somebody asking for references to do that, and just hop on that. You know, um, um, my wife is involved with a couple of nonprofit organizations, right? And those are opportunities, whether there may not be huge opportunities, right? But there's still opportunities.
Like Livio works with he in Miami. He works with a lot of nonprofits. That's kind of his focus area. Um,
Yeah.
so he had to figure out like how to present himself to nonprofits in a way that didn't scare them off.
Yeah. Especially in IT work, local nonprofits
Kevin,
are,
right?
again, are more scared than local businesses are, honestly. Um, it's it's a bit tough, but no, this morning I visited the chamber and sat and talked with some of the chamber employees for a little while. Like the goal there is to get it set up so I'm going there regularly enough that when I drop in and drop cups of coffee for them, you know, I'm getting into that unspoken, "Oh, hey, this person came by today and I thought about you," and that's the information that I want, you
Right.
know?
Yep.
Tomorrow is Rotary. That's another thing that I'm in, so we'll see. We'll see how all that goes, but that's kind of the point right now, kinda the one thing in my life I have not done. I have not really tried hard enough to do that I think is probably what needs to be done, to get through the next few years to change things is to try being an actual social person.
Right. What? So, have you already done a rotary, or is this will be your first one?
So I went last week for
Okay.
the first time, and it was interesting.
How was it? Tell me. Tell me.
Um, well, surprisingly enough, in this small town of about 35,000 people, there are two Rotary clubs. They meet at the same place, right? And one is Tuesday and one is Wednesday.
Okay.
Okay. The Wednesday one I hear is a lot more formal. Like they follow all the formal cadence of the meeting structure. Hey, Steven. Um, they do all that. I went to the Tuesday Rotary, which is a lot less formal. And I don't know. There's a young kid who's doing like legislative assistant stuff in the state of Texas. I got to listen to talk about his experience, and his dad's a member of the Rotary and introduced him, and that's all well and good and whatnot. Met a ton of people. The president of the Rotary happens to know one of the doctors in town that leads like a local, I think they call it NAPA, some group, which is where they discuss the issues of local providers, people who run their own practices, and said, "Hey, I'm going to find that person and introduce them to you next time they're around. You want to talk to them if you want to get in with local providers." So, and a lot of names. That's what a lot of names that I have no chance of remembering tomorrow. That's the other reason.
The downside of in-person conversations.
If someone has no idea, what is the point of a Rotary?
Okay. The Rotary Club is it's a volunteer organization. So they do a bunch of volunteer stuff, but it's mostly weekly lunches with other business leaders in the community.
For our purposes, it's business networking.
Networking. Yeah. Okay.
Local business networking.
That's what I was guessing.
Local business networking, but often with local businesses who have ties elsewhere. So there's sometimes a more broader, depending on where you are, a broad possibility.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have a lot of organizations like this, and they have like a young adult organization called JC's, where people get into that. And that's like, I was never into that. And my wife, who is the social butterfly, like she is, I don't understand why she doesn't listen to me, but apparently this is a common thing in marriages. So I'm just going to go with it. But I keep telling her, I'm like, hey, it'd be really, really neat. All these people, right? And I don't want you to sell me, but help me be social, help me learn how to do that so I can know all these people too. She's like, I don't know what you do. I'm not sure I want to do that.
Is it your wife?
My wife. Yeah.
Maybe you need a better elevator pitch.
I don't know. So I told her I'm doing it on my own. And if I embarrass her, that's her fault. She had her opportunity.
Yeah. As a kid watching my mom build a business, she did JC's and Rotary and Chamber because she had to get, you've got to get, and this was a tailor shop, right? Alterations business, clothing design, very small clothing design stuff. She did custom shirts, custom ties later on. And these are $10,000 shirts. I mean, they're not expensive. So she's got to network with the people that buy $10,000 shirts and $5,000 ties. And so she did all of that stuff, and it was never something I ever wanted to do. It's still not something I want to do, but if it's absolutely something that's useful to building a business and growing a business, certainly in a local community.
Yep. Yeah, it's a lot of it now is actually starting because not just for the business. I've been starting it the last couple months as my book is going to come out.
Cool.
Got the manuscript done and editing, self-publishing the whole thing. And I've ordered this proof last week. And I was like, well, now it's real, right? It's in bound written form.
You got a website for it?
I have my website. I have a whole landing page on that for it. I've got a spreadsheet with 300 independent journalists, bloggers, regular journalists, influencers. I'm trying to validate any public contact information or anything like that. I've got hooks in with the local newspaper. I started doing that. So I'm going to have then I've got soccer and all these other things going on. So I'm going to have a real busy couple months.
One of the fractionals in the community that, in one of the CTO communities that I'm in, he was not fractional, but he wrapped up the startup. He wrapped up and shut down the startup that failed, as startups fail. And, he decided, well, let me see what's next. And it turns out Fractional was next, and partly driven by a book that he had published about, startups. Right. And now people are like, well, okay, we know you have this book, so it builds that just that one piece of content alone built the expertise to build his new business. The trust of his expertise.
What's your book about? So my book is titled Beyond the Commit, the Human Side of Software Development. And it really is sort of taking a mentorship angle on the stuff that you don't get taught during your software development career that's actually really useful. The truth of it is that I don't talk about this a lot in the book. I try not to make a direct comparison to it, but it's organized structurally to follow modernization of Buddhist koans, the little truth and philosophy statements from Zen Buddhism mostly. So, for example, um, there's a Zen Buddhist koan that says, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. The work doesn't stop, And so my modern take on that is before AI, um, read code, review code. After AI, read code, review code. Like you still doing that, right? And it filled with, stories from my career and, stuff to make it realistic. But it's all about how, like, we as people, because we are human beings, right? I don't expect the AI to read my book and become an amazing humanistic software developer, right? Human being going into software development at any level of their career, man, you gotta remember that your self-development and how you act and react to the situations in front of you is just as important as your intellectual development and growth.
Yep. So when you get either the pre-order link or the order link up, put it in the community chat, and I'll add it to the episode description when this publishes.
Sounds great.
So Kevin, anything new?
Not really. Just dropping in to see who was hanging out today.
It was like
I
old
don't
school
think you've
chef
met Michael
homie.
and Steven yet, right?
Ah.
Well, Kevin and me are at chef at the same time.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's right. That's right. You do know Steven.
I don't know if we know. I don't know if he remembers me. I was like,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
And we
That's
were
fair.
actually talking about you. I was wondering if you'd show up last week, and
I was out sick for like a week. I still don't feel that great. I got knocked out with some sinuses. So, yeah.
I was telling David about the sort of the Mitch Hill era and then the Barry Griffin era, and a lot of us dropped out when
Yeah.
came the Barry era.
Yeah. I was definitely Barry era. I mean, I was around with Mitch too. I was at that chef comp,
Yeah.
the last one that I think he did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we should talk sometime. It'd be fun to catch up.
Yeah.
You're doing fractional stuff.
Yeah, I work for a venture capital on a quasi private equity company, and and I'm the CTO, and when we invest, a lot of the investments we do are like massive tech debt, very very heavy tech debt. So when we do invest in a company, we don't take control. We're not like a classic PE. We actually drop an entrepreneur in, and they run the company. But one of the things I come in as a fractional CTO or an advisor, usually focused most of my time on hiring. If there's like bleeding, one of our portfolio companies had a customer facing PHP app, and it was in GitHub. I just turned on Dependabot and came up with 22 critical security violations and 70 high violations. So that's the kind of thing where I said, you don't work on this anymore. I'm bringing in somebody new, and they're going to take over this thing and just straighten this stuff up. So I do a lot of like low hanging fruit firefighting, but a lot of it is just hiring out on the engineering team and then eventually replacing myself with someone better than me.
That's
cool.
the dream right there. Replacing yourself with someone better than me.
I mean, that is in many ways the fractional job, right? We know we're not coming in to be the long-term 10-year executive or engineer or whatever it is space that we fit into. We're there to get them through to the next thing, to the next phase.
Yeah. So what are you up to these days, Steven?
We do fractional. I do some fractional CTO stuff, but mostly we do fractional DevOps work. For like the last 5 years, we've been doing a services-led sort of software approach also. So we have our own product too. Kind of a deep tech play in the space for managing systems. And so it's been a while. We bootstrapped and we didn't do open source. So it's been kind of a wild ride. But we're still around. So Radical just like need any help with stuff and been able to survive. and eke out basically development process and things. So now we're sort of like, I'd say we're on par with some of the companies that, did seed almost a round in terms of what we got done, but without taking funding.
Do you know the Sweet Ops guys?
No.
So they're a
should
firm.
introduce you.
What's that?
Sweet
Yeah,
Ops.
yeah. I know them because they do a whole bunch of Terraform providers. But one of the things they do, and I was just curious if you have this approach, is that you can hire them, but the expectation is like you let them like just take over and bring all of their processes in and their tooling in, which I haven't had a project that actually worked for that yet. Are you more focused on a particular cloud provider, or do you move across all of them?
So our tech is very different. So it's we can use things like Terraform. I mean, yeah, no, we work with anything. It's like basically it's kind of like what's next, I guess is how I'd say it. So we end up kind of turning off Terraform and Ansible and all that. You don't need it after us. And so with our simpler solution, it's a lot less work, gets the same outcomes. There's almost no coding. We kind of got rid of the programming. And so, yeah, it's a lot to eat, but in certain situations, if people, in terms of mindset change. So with most of our engagements over the last few years, it's been like, do you want this outcome? Yes, we can get it done way faster, cheaper, better than anything else out there. But if you have opinions about how to understand what's happening, if you need to understand what's happening, I can't teach you, an information theory PhD at the same time. And so you just have to kind of trust us. But you realize that people don't understand most of what they have anyway. Like I usually say, well, explain to me how Terraform is working, and they don't get it anyway. And so usually we can get through that, and we have some really kind of next level promises that we can do in terms of stability and persistence. But it works great for especially the emergency work, people like kind of stuff you described, coming in and retrofitting safety on things, automation. Yeah. So we work the best actually outside of cloud. We work fine with cloud, but things that are not inside, we get a lot of success with things like, well, what about the stuff Terraform is not managing or not able to manage? What about all the stuff no one knows about? What about your old systems that no one wants to touch? What about Windows, right? And so we kind of float. Imagine like a DevOps tool that floats across all of that, not just what can be in the cloud.
Have you poked at System Initiative at all?
Yeah, I built it with our tool the first week it came out. But again, so
you're not there, right? That's not.
No, we're friends. Me and Adam are still friends. We have a very different. We want the same thing. I think everyone kind of wants the same thing, as like all the boats should go up, kind of thing, right? Like raise the water.
Yeah.
But their approach is with the sort of digital twin stuff, and now I think they're doing more AI stuff. I don't know, but it's a very different approach. We're like deep tech, we're actually changing the underlying science of how the system's managed. So it's very different. And so we're not competing. It's just, I don't need what he has necessarily.
Yeah. Well, cool.
Yeah. It's interesting. So yeah, we've been up to that. But mainly still just trying to get out there and do work with people, help people. There's also just the whole experienced DevOps engineer, enterprise whisperer stuff.
Yeah. Awesome.
Hey, Noel, how's it going?
Doing good. I just sent letters off to all my team members saying thanks for being part of the team.
There you go.
When I used to burn houses down for the fire department, I have one letter from one of the lieutenants that said, thanks for all you do. And I really appreciated that. So I figured, no one told me to do it, but I really appreciate the people that worked on the project. They're still working on it, and it's probably early to do that, but they extended the program by a month or two. And I've got a lot of smoke in the room here, so I might cough. Been measuring it all.
Where are you at with you're doing a startup around this smokeless smoke stuff or the thing? Where are you at now about?
I got 3 patents. I've got prototypes. I've got 3 devices down at the University of Berkeley, and a new sensor today. I've been working with a new sensor. I work with floating zeros, and that's a problem for anybody who wants a real stable zero. And so I worked on the algorithms to make the zero more acceptable to the rest of the human culture. And so I'm watching my feed come across, and it's doing pretty well. The problem is that they thought it was the sensor drifting, but I think it's the LED drifting. Either one would have the same drifting problem. And I can change my background to the only thing I can share. I've got a meeting at 1, so I appreciate you guys talking to me.
So
So-
are you trying to go to market, or are you getting closer, or what is the
I have prototypes that I can give to people. I tell them to use them at their own risk. And that's really the air combustion controllers, the combustion air controllers, because the system works on feeding air to a wood stove at the proper rate. And I'm testing my own, and I have beta testers, and trying to get feedback from your beta testers is always hit and miss. Then if you have one of my smoke sensors, it'll talk to the combustion air controller, and when the smoke wood stove creates a little too much smoke, it'll adjust the air pattern profile to try to involve more fire, more material to prevent smoking, or raise the wood stove temperature to reduce the smoking, then confirm to the combustion air controller that it's done so. The combustion air controller will do its best based on temperature and time. But, the Department of Energy just wants to measure smoke. And they're going to a peer-reviewed paper, or at least they think they are. Because my device can measure hot particles and gases, whereas all the expensive equipment has to be measured in a dilution tunnel where they cooled all the gases and particles down to a temperature that won't ruin the equipment. So my device can measure it hot. So you don't need $100,000 dilution tunnel with $30,000 of instrumentation on it. I used to manage all that instrumentation. I know it is touchy. For example, your CO and CO2 and oxygen analyzer, to do calorimetry work, you have to pull those hot gases out of the duct. You have to filter all the particulates out. You have to filter all the water out. If you send water through an oxygen analyzer, it'll misread. Then you got to get it down to room temperature and then pull all the water out, send it through the oxygen analyzer. And you have to account for all that time that you did that. So with my system, you just take a picture of the particles as they go by. And the legal limit for the Washington state is if you can't exceed 20% opacity for 6 consecutive minutes. And no one has the patience to go out and try to monitor their chimney for 6 consecutive minutes. So the system works. I'm looking for funding because I've made as many as I can. I have 6 oxygen smoke measurement devices, and I have probably 10 combustion air controllers. They all work, and I'm adjusting the code. But really, it doesn't make sense for me to spend much more of my money. I'm completely bootstrapped. So I'm looking for financing and a manufacturing partner.
Could you sell right now, though? I mean, could you sell the devices, or you need to manufacture them?
I could sell them. The problem being, there's a couple of. I used to be a fire investigator and was always looking at the liability issues. Now,
Right.
I think these things are going to be required fairly soon. If you look at what's going on in Vancouver, BC, they are making all the wood stoves get registered. And then when you register, you have to sign up for what's called a best practices. And best practices means you will have no visible smoke out of your chimney at any time during burning. And that is not feasible. I made YouTube videos saying that's just not proper science. There are atmospheric conditions where no matter what you do, even a natural gas furnace will produce a plume. And how is that different than a wood stove?
Right.
How do you get your thing to cancel condensation?
Yes, you can't do that. Under certain atmospheric conditions, it is not possible to, but they're making all the people, there's about 100,000 wood stoves in Vancouver, BC metro area, which is pretty much everything north of the 49th parallel up to Squamish, I think. They're making everybody register their wood stoves. And in the process of doing so, they're making them agree to a set of rules. And it's a little draconian to me.
Right. Is there,
I mean,
yeah.
our Washington state and most of the other states are under this opacity standard, but I make the only opacity measuring equipment.
Hmm.
So,
Is there,
go ahead.
Is there a computer in it?
I use ESP32s.
Okay. A single board?
It's yeah. But the nice thing about these little boards, this little board right here, well, I'll give you guys a close-up. So it's the same form factor as an Arduino, but this little silver thing that I can try right there,
yeah,
I can't do it. That is the ESP32. So this gives me the ins and outs, input, output. I use like 4 pins on this.
So you're not using an operating system. It's just a microcontroller. It's running your code.
It's running my code. Yeah.
Right. But it's not an OS. It's not that big.
It's about 300 lines of code.
Okay. So it's like more like an Arduino.
Yeah. It's more like an Arduino. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
But
the neat thing about these is they use a proprietary ESP Now protocol. I can send out 200 bytes. Right now, the Octaring is sitting there scanning. It's sending data to this unit right here every 1.6 seconds. I can read 50 readings and send it out every 607 milliseconds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's too fast. That's too much data.
Right. Like too much sampling. Yeah. Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh, you can finish. It might change the subject slightly. But.
Dr. Rapp at the University of Berkeley wanted 1 hertz. So I was using a different sensor called a TCS 34725. No, there won't be a quiz. That I could get to sample 5 times, do some statistics on it, report the mean, and get that out in 996 milliseconds. So I got it under 1 second. Now, I sent them 3 of them. They like the second one the best. And so they've been running on the second one. The other 2, they call parts units.
Yeah. These are This is an RGB sensor. This is cool.
So what I get from the sensor are 2 numbers that I want. Dr. Rapp wants something else. Lux, which is the incident light, which is the absorption of particles, and that's this graph. This is when I started the process, they didn't say I could measure a pellet stove. Well, every time you drop pellets in, you get these little peaks up. Now, this gray line, which you probably can't see, is a $11,000 particle analyzer that's in the dilution tunnel. So
all that setup you just said,
yeah, the gray thing, that's what they're comparing it to. But it can only measure cold gases. What they're saying is my device can measure any wood stove, pellet stove, catalyst, or secondary burner. And that's what this one is. And this one, now Dr. Rapp removes the ticks. So this is about 20% right here. And this is about an hour. So you can kind of see that it was over 20% for a significant amount of time.
But again, the thing we're measuring is opacity, right?
with
Right.
yours?
That's
Is-
the absorption of light or the reduction in incident light measured
right.
in lux.
There's I'm reading this book right now for a different reason, but it's called The Ecological Approach to Perception. This is where the sort of reference that people use a lot about. I'm reading it because of the reference of it's the most cited. It's the guy who came up with affordances and a bunch of like sort of like the 3D AI people, especially. I forget her name. She just brought out a book from Stanford about affordances and stuff. But the chapters about translucency and transparency and perception, how even in a gas that is not you're seeing, but you can't see anything because it's just white, right? Like say in the smoke. It's just super interesting. Mainly we're trying to, look at like when someone says like, I see my servers in Amazon, it's like, what do you mean? Right? Like there's some things about this, but in this approach, it's super interesting using sort of translucency as a measure. I think that this is the first thing. It's exactly what they're talking about. And I forget his name, Smith, in this book. It's interesting. It's just funny. I just happen to be reading that right now. Yeah.
One of the strange things about light is you can put a condensing cloud in there, but you don't lose your light. It just
No, it's
bounces
conserved.
around.
So that was the whole thing. Direct versus what he called, what you're calling lux, but direct or diffuse. And honestly, there's so much diffuse that it is bouncing, like, right? But at some point it becomes equilibrium and stable. And then, we can kind of talk about these surfaces. So it's interesting.
The thing I want, and Dr. Rapp, I can't even get him to say, is I say, because absorbance will work down to the peak wavelength of the light. Let's say that's 500 nanometers. For people who don't know what 500 nanometers is, when you put oil on water, you get a rainbow. The green is 500 nanometers of oil thickness. So absorbance works down to 500 nanometers. Now that's a really small particle, but from that point on down to 50 nanometers, you get what's called Tyndall effect scattering. So you have the absorption down to 500 nanometers, and then from 500 meters down, you have scatter effect, and it shifts the color to the red because you're scattering off preferentially the blue light. The green and red light go through. Now, I can't get Dr. Rapp to make a chart like this, but I have several with the green, with the color shift. The thing is, they can't find, these particles are so fine, they don't have the funding to go look for them. So I can just say they exist and say, I got my color shift will measure down to 50 nanometers. No one can prove me wrong.
Yeah. It's super interesting.
Yeah, I think they're going to be required at some point. It's just whether or not I can keep my company afloat until then.
Yeah. Here's a switch so I talked to a fellow. I'm still on this thing called the Y Combinator Startup School where you just meet other founder.
Yeah, I'm on Y Combinator.
Someone reached out. He's already sold a few where air quality, not just sensors, but cleaners. And so he's a experienced HVAC guy. We're still talking. It's sort of that other kind of fractional CTO where I think he's got an awesome thing. He's already sold a few. He did it all himself, but he's at the point where he's talking about trying to sell this product to clean, like he could basically surpass the air quality of requirements in buildings.
Do you know how it works or what he's told you or what you can relay on how?
Not yet, but what I do know is we talked more pragmatically, like if you're selling this to a building, it started to trigger things like you're going to have to talk to IT. Like this is not a like sort of physical plant conversation. This is more about like one, I was like, is there a computer in it? Which is always a good question. He's like, yes, there's a Raspberry Pi. I'm like, what if and then, having sensors, right? They're going to need, he was wiring them. I'm like, in an office, you'd probably want to leverage their existing networks. But it's going to need someone who knows how to talk to IT and things like, I was saying something like, I can imagine more of a virtual machine we give them to run in their own system safely. And then a way to put your sensors near their Wi-Fi pucks and make sure all that works. And he's like, like
there's entire existing companies.
Sense.
Depending upon how large scale you go with that, Stephen, there's an entire existing companies
involved in the construction of places that need those things, and they all go by. I actually know one of them. I know one of them from my previous work. They're low voltage installers.
Yeah, all of it's low.
That's what they do.
Yeah, so low voltage. I mean, piggyback on existing IT infrastructure, but this is an HVAC. I mean, like 30 something years in HVAC. But I think that he needs a partner. At least I was like, sort of, this is that other kind of fraction, more like what Michael's doing. Like, this is hyper local, sort of small business, but saying, look, I do stuff like this all the time. Let me just kind of like not educate you, but let me talk through some of this, because I think it really expands his business, where he thought, I'll just throw a pie in there. And I'm like, you can't just have a pie inside a company. You know what I mean? Like, not really.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you can run into all sorts of problems, unless it depends on your contract, and if this is the instrumentation for your system, then nobody cares.
Right.
But there's a lot of potential complexity in that.
Well, and then
Same for Noel, right? Like, same for Noel. If he's got these microcontrollers and there's a bug in the software, well, Noel, once you sell like 400 of these,
If they're network connected, it gets
yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
if you can even connect, that's the other thing. Like,
That's
over
true.
the air update, I've done some things like this. This is
it's
not fun.
right now. It's just peer to peer. In fact, it's secure. I would say that even you, without not having much information, could not hack the system. Now,
Right.
I don't want to test that, but no one has hacked it yet. It just sends a signal out, and you got to have one of my boxes to pick it up. So I get worried that the authority having jurisdiction will try to get the signal off these, and that's what I'm trying to avoid, unless they're the ones owning it.
AHJ.
Yeah.
One of my favorite terms from spending time in the in basically any of the trades.
Authority have jurisdiction.
Yeah. Once there's a computer in these things, you're triggering, CTO, right? Period. Like, whether it's software life cycle for your software, I had a customer, they're 13 years in, and they have 10,000 IoT devices, and they thought they would be acquired by, so they're a startup. They were Y Combinator startup. You think, 4 years, you're only thinking 4 years in, you're going to deploy all these IoT devices, 10,000 worldwide. And at the time it was Ubuntu 14. And then come around 7-8 years later, they're still on 14, and you can't be, right? Like, they actually hit that. What are we going to do? Update all? Go out and
Ship 10,000
collect
out?
them in a basket? No, like, right?
Right.
Well, my vision is all the boxes come back to me, because my work is seasonal. I can load up new software during the summer.
Well,
and send the
one of the
boxes
other
out.
fun ones is on the deployed hardware that's inaccessible. I work with a product inside the healthcare industry, and they have devices deployed inside a piece of the ecosystem. We'll put it that way, and they have to deploy SSL client-side certs to these.
Yeah,
right?
PKI is its own nightmare.
Yes,
in here.
and so these have to have their client-side certs updated, and once they expire, they can't communicate out at all.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. Welcome to this. Is like, so I love this. This is like where I'm looking for these things. Like, anyone know anyone with like a bunch of their whole business and all their IoT that can't communicate out, or is a week from that, right? Like, where it's, because you get quoted things like $250,000 in a year to go out and collect them all, right? Or send them all in, like you said, Noel. But this is interesting stuff when we talk about, because Michael's in that same vein. You're talking about dentist office, and this sort of localized IT is really an interesting space. If we can leverage everything we learned out there doing, deploying Riot Games or whatever, you could still. I think you add all that up, there's a little bit of a, like I said before, flattening of IT. Like, not so much everyone's going to go the FANG job. I mean, I just know about 10 more people that just got completely laid off from Microsoft, and these are older than me, 10 years older, lots of them. This flattening that's happening business wise, it might be a good bet to kind of I like these kinds of things that you're doing, Noel. I just think like these, you add them all up and it's way bigger, right? As a business plan.
It looks to me like it's at least 50% manufacturing, and then and then it's going to be, because I have to make things that go in people's houses, and so this is the fan. This is made of oak. Would you rather have this or a plastic one?
Right. Is this theoretically, well, it's got to be near the fireplace? No.
It's got to be, I have to plumb out from this hook. So I usually put it under the fireplace. I like to be able to see it and measure the RPM, so I have it facing out like a speaker would be.
Right.
So there's really a couple different types of businesses here, right? And this ties in kind of what you were saying, Stephen, right? No, I agree. Like, you seem to be more on the manufacturing side of it, but the application of your equipment, right, still has to be distributed in some shape, form, or fashion, right?
Right.
Just like the dude that, Stephen, that you're talking about, right? It's got to be distributed in some shape, form, or fashion, right? You can build this equipment all day long and manufacture it, right? Or have it manufactured.
Or make the kit, right? Like source the kit.
But one of the big problems we have in the industry I see both these things in is an industry I've thought a lot about, which is I've thought about more in the residential aspect, for sure. But it's whole house system monitoring, whole house automation, whole house system.
There's a lot of companies that do that, but
and nobody is working together.
No, they are not. And the other thing is, it's actually, and we've talked about this, but we can say it more like generally. Like the post-pandemic, we saw a growth in internet connectivity because everyone had to work from home. At least it wasn't evenly distributed, but it did get a pretty good shot in the arm. There was a lot of good programs out there that got even, people who wouldn't have had internet now have it and things like that. There is also, in a way, I'm going to say real quick vision thing, but what's happening in the data center and all this cloud storage was mainly to train the AIs. Now that they're trained, there's not a lot of incentive for a lot of these big companies to store your stuff anymore. But it might make sense to have some kind of simple, like you said, home data center kind of stuff that mirrors kind of what we learned in IT. You're seeing a boom of home lab out there. If people are smart, they're already playing around with this. They want their own. If they're video people, like guys like Jeff Geerling or Techno Tim or anybody doing that stuff, they already have their own stuff because they have videos and they're storing. I don't know where David's keeping his videos and stuff, probably in the cloud, but you can keep it local. You're going to need things like home security, home cameras, all this stuff. This is, again, significant compute, right? And management. And this stuff, no one wants to put this in the cloud, nor do they want to pay for that. So you could pay $10,000 a year in cloud storage. You could pay $10,000 once and have us almost mail you something sick.
There's long been a market in high-end homes,
right?
Basically for a IT guy, and one friend of mine, that's half or more of what their business does. Is they fill that role. So
right, we're like your lawyer now. I feel like, honestly, these are the kind of conversations me and Michael, we said this before. It's like you have your lawyer, you have your business guy, and you have your tech guy or person. And with those, whether you're building out your mansion, I've seen some crazy home stuff, right? Like it's like it's way more than a small company. This is like a mid-level business level IT play. I think it's interesting. I think it's a cool space. And you add all that up,
And there's 13 million wood stoves in the USA alone.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And, no emission monitoring going on. I mean, think about your vehicles in, let's see. I started out with a 1915 Model T Ford. It had nothing. I had to crank.
You don't look that old. Jeez, you look great, man.
But I also had an FJ40. It was carbureted, no catalytic converter, no emissions on the thing. And now you can't buy
points.
You can't buy a car without a catalytic converter and stoichiometry measurement.
That's not true. Because
unless it's an electric car.
EVs don't have cats.
I have one of those. But for internal combustion, I said internal combustion.
It would be funny if they still made you keep a cat somewhere, like just because of the law, like just That would be the ultimate.
And they still have to honor the 10 years emissions warranty on the catalytic converter.
Yeah, and it gets stolen all the time, like off your Prius. That would be the level of absurd
Now,
that
the
I
Prius
think no
does
one's
because the
Prius does have one.
Oh yeah, because it's a
yeah.
car. Yeah,
hybrids.
The thing about it, in the same vein, like right now, having done this about 7 years ago, knowing that in the last 5 years, like only in the last 5 years have they started selling external air conditioning units that automatically start as what they call soft start. Right. The compressor kicks on at a much lower amperage than your
inverter stuff. Your mini splits were the first inverter technology in the US, but
most things up until 2020, you had to buy a separate kit to get the soft start in order to be able to use that on a generator.
So they're integrating soft starts into non-inverter compressors now?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it's coming for homes. It's coming with it, right? Yeah. So, but what they still don't have, which would be really just, I think, relatively simple, is built into the unit, since it's already hooked in and talking to Wi-Fi, most of these units, right? Why don't you have amperage monitoring on the main electrical? Well, because that amperage monitoring would tell you exactly when that compressor is starting to fail. Right?
The solar stuff, the smart panels, but even Noel's thing, like if Noel was piggybacking on the mini splits or like the HVAC, right? This is interesting too, like where these integrated systems, because I think if I was building something new, I'm not going to do each one separate like it's the 70s anymore. And honestly, all of it has a computer hooked to it is really where I think it's heading, right? So I don't want 9 computers in my house, each thing having its own microcontroller.
If you have a mini split, you're probably controlling in the winter at 67 degrees. If you have a wood stove, I'm controlling at 74.
Right.
Who do you want? You want to be?
I want to just have one thing like that turns on the wood stove and then like Michael's saying, I want to monitor my air quality. I want to monitor my voltage. I want my solar also on there. You know what I mean?
And splits are doing 74 year round. I don't know about
I want the hyper converged house, right? This is what I want.
The thing right here, if you're looking for, I don't know if this is helpful at all, but my mind immediately goes to, you just said how many million of wood burning stoves exist?
13 in the US.
In the US. So a good strategic partnership there is the people who make the stoves.
Okay, let me explain that one.
Yeah.
A wood stove works for 20 years. Only 5% of them get replaced. So all those manufacturers are going after 5% of the market.
I think all of
retrofit, which is all of them.
I think almost all of the stoves that my mom operates right now, which she's got 4, the manufacturers are long gone. Because these are all more than 20 years old.
There's no electronics in these things. These are like potbelly stoves, basically. This is just like a big metal pot.
It's a cast iron, give or take. It's a cast iron box that you put wood in and light it on fire.
Yeah. This is like not. Yeah. And so
I sell air controllers to put air in, and I use a non-contact eye that watches the stove and gets the stove. If the stove gets warmer, I put more air in. It just makes sense. If it's cooling off, I put less air in. And then I can talk
to automating the stoves.
Yeah, I'm automating the combustion. One, I like good flames. I like really good flames. And so I can know how to put air into a wood stove that makes the flames do things. In other words, if you put air on one spot, fire on one place on a piece of wood, it chars over and releases less heat. So you want that wood, that flame, to go back and forth and involve new material. That will reduce your smoke.
That's super cool. I mean, you're basically like on the old 70s, like Kawasaki's I had, they had points and you want to convert them to electronic ignition, right? So you're a retrofit in with this controller. It'd be cool though if you could, I mean, not you don't need this. But no, there is a huge home labber thing with this home assistant stuff like Michael brought up, where if you can somehow integrate this in where you can not only, I mean, then you really are talking to a new audience that's like, well, I never thought about having a wood-buried stove. But if I did, I wanted to show up right next to my Kubernetes cluster and my Home Assistant, right?
Well,
And my Ubiquity stuff, right?
That and the people who that is a serious overlap with homesteaders and off the gridders.
Yeah. With the solar crowd, it's even more. I mean, I'm lately getting way more into the solar stuff, trying to run stuff completely off the grid, computers, which is hard because they're continuous draw.
My systems are like 2 watts to put
you
air
could run
in.
off a 30-watt panel and a $10 battery.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to run the smoke sensor off, but it's all geared right now to what the lab at Berkeley wants.
Right. Yeah. Once you get through that, but this, I'll just say, like, looking forward, I think that the market wants, solar powered and metrics. Like, I would not have bought I have another solar system, like a DIY one. And the thing that's missing the most is I don't know where the battery's at. I love the EcoFlow, even though it's sending all my data wherever, probably, I think to China is where EcoFlow's from. At least the app is awesome, right? Like, I can really see what's going on in real time, and it's pretty. So there's some things like that.
Yeah, surprisingly enough, these off the grid folks and homesteaders have a significant amount of internet connectivity still, based upon the number of videos I watch from them on social media.
They make I've been looking at these, you see them in parking lots. Well, at least where I live, there's parking lots with the security systems with the camera. Now they make power over Ethernet switches.
Yeah, PoE.
But it's an actual Ethernet switch. It looks just like a Linksys or something, like a MikroTik, but it has a solar MPPT on it. Plus, you're starting to see things like LTE on those, Michael. And so now I could probably put together, like, with a 50-watt panel, you could build out like a full-on remote surveillance system, right, on your cabin, things like that. So I just think that, this home integration, especially when you're talking about something like Knoll, I think that's a sell point. That's what I'm telling that other guy, only it's for offices. Ride on don't invent IT on your own, just ride on their existing IT. He never thought about stuff like that.
Yeah, though, I mean, sometimes that's problematic. It depends on the importance of the infrastructure that you're operating. And a heat cool system could be problematic because what happens in a network outage? Do you need your own can your infrastructure behave and function? Is it going to be lossy but work? Is it going to, what is that failure mode? And if it's
right,
then they just go to full cool and cool the place and potentially, saturate the room in humidity and condensation, then that's a bad thing. Or they go to full heat and they melt the computers.
Or get hacked and someone makes it, like, slowly turns up the heat. Yeah.
Right. And so having it on its own isolated network allows you, the HVAC installer, company, operator, manufacturer, whoever, be in charge of that and not have to depend on the chaos of whatever local organization is doing IT building at the moment.
I still no. If we're a corporation, though, David, there's
no
way that IT is going to let there be computers in HVAC. Like, I don't know.
Does the corporation own it? The corporation may not own the building or own the
Yeah, right. They might not even own the building. But I think what's interesting is as more computers are starting to enter in all kinds of capacities, whether it's network, like you have computers that are monitoring the network. Well, what network are those on, right? Like the security systems, the HVAC all of a sudden has computers. It starts to be an interesting thing with IT, right? Because these are the ones that are on the hook. The CISO is on the hook for this stuff, in a way, if there's computers. So I think it is better to integrate it, but I agree, right? May not.
Noel.
Thanks, Noel.
I will catch up with you guys later. I'm going to meet with Platypus Sprinkler System. They make wildfire suppression systems.
Hell yeah!
So it's not for life and safety. That's nice. All right, have a good day, guys.
Yeah. This home stuff is, I think, super interesting to integrate it things as it becomes. These are emerging IT markets, right?
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah,
and also Netflix isn't hiring right now, really. So might as well go do something else. Like, you guys want to You guys want to automate all the things at your nursery and all the things at your,
This leans toward my argument that all businesses are tech businesses today.
Oh, yeah.
Just they're all software businesses in some form or the other. Almost all.
Every single company's having a dependency nightmare right now.
Right.
No, I mean, like, and they just don't know it. From dog walking to
Your dog walker is using 3 or 4 different pieces of software as a service to schedule their stuff and operate their business, and they haven't even thought about how do they integrate this. Why should they integrate it? Maybe it doesn't matter, but what happens when their scheduler goes out of business tomorrow, because that's what SaaS does.
They need IT though. I have talked to an actual successful dog walking business. I said, how much have you spent on IT like this week? She actually needed to ask, what do you mean? I said, anytime you weren't walking dogs and messing around on a computer. She's like, I spent 6 hours with GoDaddy trying to change something on the site. I was like, what?
Right.
You could have been walking dogs. And I was like, how about you give me like 150 or to $300 a month and I'll do all that for you? And she's like, no way, that's crazy.
Like,
so we're not, but
minutes.
it's not, but we need that price point. Again, it's that whole, Michael, like said it, like, are we insurance? Are we lawyers? Are we a retainer? Like these electricians with these panels, they only get paid if they come out. But when I said we could just put the panel on the internet and you could see all your customers, he's like, but then how do I make money? I'm like, subscription. He's like, oh, they don't want to do that. I'm like, but they pay for cable out the wazoo.
Right.
People love
and like you mentioned the HVAC compressor. The argument against active monitoring for residential AC, air conditioning compressors, right, is that the companies make their money on service calls. Mm-hmm. They make their money on the failure. They make their money on the escalation pricing. If they came out preventative maintenance, replaced it, right, on their schedule, on your schedule, before it's failed, then they can't charge as much as when it's out. And
that's what I want to disrupt, though. Like, talk to them directly. I don't want to.
But you're going to have to convince the service industry that they can change and that they can be profitable in that change. And thanks, Kevin.
Yeah, nice seeing you, Kevin.
And that's a big uphill battle, especially for these organizations that can't. All of you guys in HVAC, I'm sorry, but you guys don't know how to read a freaking schematic, much less a flow diagram for diagnostics that's in the service manual for the equipment that you're standing next to.
Yeah, a lot of
times. I train
yeah.
every single person that comes out to work on my systems.
Right. You know more about it than them.
And I walk them through the flow diagrams. I'll walk them through the schematics so that they can see, right? And they'll call me on another job sometimes and say, help.
You're like, here's my rate.
But that's why the business is not providing, to me, it's not providing the sensors, the setup, everything to companies that service the units, right? It's like Noel's trying to find a way to be aftermarket installed. It's essentially the business is making it so that all these really creative ideas about home sensors, right, are easily accessible. You guys said it right. Every business is a tech business. Every business is a software business. Every business, if you're going to go down that logic, the next one is every business is a data business. And it has nothing to do with the usefulness of your application to the end user. That is an important part, right? But it bears the same relationship to the data as the idea of, hey, my posts on LinkedIn, the content of them, yeah, it matters to me, but in reality, the content doesn't matter. What matters to the LinkedIn algorithm is that I'm posting on a consistent basis.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So all that being said, the relationship is the same. The usability of your application for your end users is important because more people adopt it. You get good word of mouth. It's all that.
Yeah.
Then there's the data that comes from it. And that business is completely different and arguably a ton more profitable. If you were to collect all this home data, right, back to your server, right?
They don't even know that people are collecting it, much less when I
Do
tell
the
them they are,
analysis.
that you want to keep provenance on this.
Do you know how much ADP has gotten paid in the last 30 years?
Oh, dude, that's all it was.
Data from the U.S. government.
It's worth way more. The data ADP collected those years is worth more than any of their surveillance current customer stuff. They could just turn off. But so I think one of the things like that I think is the joke is I don't want to pay $300 a month. I want to pay everything all at once, right when it's broken, right? This is the mentality that they get trained on, right? Like David's talking about. This service coming out. These are hardware businesses. They're there to sell you a new $25,000 HVAC. And so I think that this is a ripe space where I don't know. I don't know why I keep coming back to this, mainly because Michael's on the call too, but it is still very much IT. I think it's what David's saying, that you're a tech company with an HVAC problem, specifically a local HVAC problem, but we're still a tech company. There's a huge untapped. Like forget, I was in the space of like edge, cloud, DevOps, all this stuff, right? The most craziest things you can think of. But AI's made me kind of like, whatever with AI. Let's go look a different direction. If you add up every business in the United States at all levels and their IT footprint, it far outweighs anything that went to the cloud by a lot. And what are they doing? Nothing about it. Like it's still, they're lost and they need to be educated, right, Michael? They need to be educated about what data are we generating? Every house is a company also, right?
There is a adoption curve, and the adoption curve for all the things, as we know with DevOps,
right,
as an example, right? That there are still
we learned, right?
There are still companies and engineers and sysadmins and IT people who still haven't even thought about it,
right.
Much less joined it, embraced it, destroyed it, and moved on to whatever post DevOps is. Which is kind of where we are, right?
Yeah.
But every single piece of this, every single thing is suffering this problem of the adoption curves, and you've got early adopters, late adopters, and everything in between. And we're moving so fast now with technology,
like AI stuff, and the urgency that people feel.
Yes, that it's creating. I don't know. The gaps here are, and the dichotomy is.
Well, this is why every time I see Michael, because we've talked about this, I get excited about if you can take people that have been at the levels we've been deploying Facebook, out there telling like Ford Motors how to design their data set, automating the largest compliance apparatus out there for UHG Optum, but coming in and telling some small HVAC in Texas or a dentist IT, we can use these same techniques at this level and figure that out. I think it's interesting. It's interesting.
Right.
We're due for it. And it helps everybody. I think it's actually sort of interesting in that way where like, say we were off at a war and we're coming back. What can we do with all the skills we learned out there in the war to make more consumer level stuff? Let's not make tanks. Let's make washing machines, right? Like, let's not talk about how to make Netflix faster. Let's talk about how to help like local IT. Right. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, it is an interesting space. And I feel like what I'm doing right now with all the socialization is really exploring the validation of this idea with the most non-tech savvy audience possible.
Yeah.
They're smart people.
The Rotary Club, right? Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, you don't get a degree to be able to perform dentistry on children and adults, right? Without being a pretty smart person, right? And yet they're
not IT professionals. They're just
I walked into the Chamber of Commerce earlier today and listened to a guy talking to the communications director. The Chamber of Commerce is offering them something that has to do with SEO. And the chamber barely knows what the fuck SEO is.
And even that, yeah.
And I have to balance politically the idea of, I can't say that, right? Because I need the chamber to make the connections, right? But also,
you're doing
my
an
business
amazing
card has on it digital strategy.
Exactly. You're
marketing is
being there.
part of that.
you're exposing yourself as a resource. I've been doing that locally now. I'm working on advertising more, but holding space somewhere locally and being like generalized, like almost repair cafe. Like we got to get some of these local businesses in our areas thinking about this, or maybe the city, but I get kind of shooed away about city stuff because that's a little bit different. And I agree, like that's kind of like in dealing with the Fed instead of just, private companies. It's
City
different,
government's a little bit hard, but I will be happy to talk to
especially
you about
local
that
city.
some other time.
Small city
Because
governments are not so bad. I mean, like I
Yeah.
work with City of Daytona and City of Port Orange. Not directly. The company I worked for had contracts with them and stuff. And dealing with those guys, it was not bad at all. There was the politics, but once you were like, because we got access to their dark fiber that City of Daytona had, and plus we also sold internet service to the City of Daytona at the same time. So we had both pieces, and it it was not bad. They're a little backwards. They're a little cumbersome. I mean, and this was 20 years ago.
It's just a process, right? It's a very different process than say
big
like
cities
partnering.
get way more complicated.
Yeah, partnering with local HVAC conglomerate, like Michael was saying, or dentist equipment people, or these IT needs. Dentists they keep popping up, or doctors' offices. There's a lot of these are large, small, giant IT operations.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm happy to stick around if you want.
Cool. We're gonna call it done here. Awesome.
Interesting.
Well, thank you guys for coming, and we'll see what the future holds.